So, it is working, yeah. Welcome to my talk of Mothers and Managers, the effect of videos depicting gender stereotypes on women and men in the security and privacy field. My name is Alina Gerber, and this is joint work with Alina Stöver and Peter Meyer. So the security and privacy field, like the field of computer science in general, suffers from gender imbalances, like we heard in the very first talk yesterday, and stereotypes such as required skills being incompatible with female gender roles. These stereotypes might elicit the stereotype threat effect in women trying to enter the S&P field. The stereotype threat effect is well explored in the field of mathematics, and it describes that when individuals are exposed to depictions or descriptions of stereotypes that target them, it can affect their performance and interest in the respective domain. For example, a study showed that when women were exposed to commercials containing gender stereotypes, their performance in a math test and their interest in the field decreased. So we set out to investigate whether gender stereotypes displayed in commercial videos can also elicit the stereotype threat effect in the security and privacy field. Our research questions were, do videos that depict gender stereotypes influence security and privacy attitudes and intentions? And do videos that depict gender stereotypes influence self-assessed and objective S&P knowledge? We conducted a between-subject online experiment with 933 participants who we recruited on Prolific, and we selected the commercial videos on YouTube based on a pre-study with 92 participants. After giving informed consent, participants were randomly assigned to one of 4 different priming groups in which they were shown 2 commercial videos, and then asked to answer several questionnaires and scales measuring security and privacy attitudes, intentions, and knowledge. After that, they answered 2 additional questionnaires capturing their gender identification and sexism, provided their demographics, answered a manipulation check, and got debriefed. So these are screenshots of the videos that were shown in the 4 different priming groups. In the stereotype woman condition, women were shown in homemaker settings, for example, in their role as mothers. In the stereotype man condition, men but not women were shown in science and engineering settings. In the non-stereotype condition, women were shown in science and engineering settings. And in the control group, animals were shown in neutral settings. We used a set of ANOVAs to analyze S&P attitudes and intentions and found no significant differences between the priming groups for security attitude, measured with the SA13, security intention, measured with the SOUPS questionnaire, technological affinity, measured with the ATI scale, and privacy concerns, measured with the IOIPC8. We also included 12 items asking for interest to prevent multiple S&P risk scenarios developed by Story et al., which we analyzed using Kruskal-Wallis and Wilcox-Frank sum tests, and found that women in the non-stereotype condition, displaying women in engineering and science settings, expressed significantly more interest to prevent hacker access to their devices than women in the 2 stereotype conditions, displaying women in homemaker settings and men but not women in engineering and science settings. We also used several scales to measure objective and self-assessed S&P knowledge, including the technical knowledge of privacy tools scale, the technical scale of the OPLIS, measuring privacy literacy, the Internet know-how self-report scale, 5 items measuring self-confidence and security knowledge, 3 items measuring general technical knowledge, computer security knowledge, and privacy knowledge, and 1 multiple choice question asking about S&P skills. Again, we conducted Kruskal-Wallis and Wilcox-Frank sum tests and found that women in the stereotype woman condition, displaying women in homemaker settings, reported significantly higher levels of security knowledge than women in the stereotype man condition, displaying men but not women in engineering and science settings. In terms of gender effects, our analysis showed that women reported higher levels of concerns on the SA13 and in all 3 privacy concern scales, while men had more technical knowledge of privacy tools and privacy literacy, reported higher levels of security engagement, attentiveness, and resistance, more technological affinity, more familiarity with internet tools and concepts, confidence and security knowledge, self-assessed technical security and privacy knowledge, and greater S&P skills. So overall, we did not find broad evidence for the stereotype threat effect from advertisement videos in the security and privacy field. While a first significant difference that showed in our data, which was women in the non-stereotype condition reporting more interest to prevent hacker access to their devices than women in the stereotype conditions, might indicate a stereotype threat effect. The second significant difference in our data, which was women in the stereotype woman condition reporting higher levels of security knowledge than women in the stereotype man condition, does not seem to relate to the stereotype threat effect. This effect might result from problems with eliciting the priming and anomaly in our sampling, or from different factors that influence our participants' gender attitudes across their lifetime and overshadow the priming in our study. For example, gender roles might have been adapted in the participants' early childhood due to social influences which ingrained stereotypical attitudes far deeper than our study priming could. It is possible that this resulted in the belief that it is more acceptable for women than men to not be knowledgeable in the security and privacy domain, or that they consider different sources for information about S&P topics. To overcome such social norms and stereotypes, it is important to first acknowledge the still existing gender imbalance in advertisements, in which women are still more frequently sexualized or depicted as caregivers and men as more independent. Also, we need to address the self-concepts of children. Research in the education field indicates that long-term counseling is a promising approach for breaking up traditional educational choices, for example, in the STEM field, especially when participants can identify with a counselor who then becomes a role model. In the S&P context, campaigns could therefore rely on existing role models, or people from the children's social environment could become role models if they talk about S&P topics. Also, S&P advocates in a professional context could broach existing stereotypes directly to sensitize their audience to this issue. However, care has to be taken to not place additional burdens on women in the S&P field and thereby intensify already unequal job conditions. Further, security and privacy should be included as mandatory content in curricula at schools, universities, and trainings also for non-technical professions to allow girls and women to make positive experiences and strengthen their self-efficacy in this area. To really get to the root of the problem, we as a society should avoid exposing children to social gender norms and stereotypes. This includes, for example, to transition towards a market with more gender-neutral choice, advertising messages, and content in fictional and non-fictional media. In addition, gender stereotypes that are already established in the society would have to be addressed directly by parents or teachers and exposed as such. It might therefore be beneficial to address awareness campaigns and counseling programs not only to young people, but also to parents and teachers. Finally, we identified some challenges and directions for future work. First, we have to find solutions to recruit sufficient numbers of participants from genders beyond women and men. Second, we have to identify appropriate priming stimuli. And third, we should explore options to capture security and privacy knowledge and behavior objectively instead of relying on self-report data. So to conclude, we found few effects of stereotype priming in our study, and thus not much evidence for the stereotype threat effect in the security and privacy field. However, women in the non-stereotype condition reported more interest to prevent hacker access to their devices than women in the stereotype conditions. We further found a variety of gender differences and, again, highlight the importance of finding possibilities to include gender groups beyond women and men in empirical studies, especially when a large sample is required. So if you do have any ideas on how to do that, please share them with us now. Thank you for your attention. I'm now happy to answer questions or hear your ideas on multiple gender recruitment, and you can download the paper here.